Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. So I've been playing GMT's US Civil War, and I'm going to continue playing that, so don't fret, don't worry. But in playing that game is I don't want to say it's a railroad of the Civil War, but it is, you certainly are railroaded into the generals that you can have and what can happen to them. But it's also railroady in the sense that it tries to follow history, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But sometimes I want a more sandboxy game. And in playing that game, I really wanted to go back and try this game. This is not really I've already tried this. I've done a playthrough of this on the channel, and that wasn't a very good playthrough. It's a great introduction. If you haven't watched the introduction to this game, that part was great, but the actual turns I did not do correctly. I think I got the combat completely wrong in that. But this game, if you want a sandbox Civil War game, that's fun to play. This is the one, CSA America's Civil War, 1861 to 1865 by Ben Madison and Wes Ernie. Now, this was due for a reprint, and it was due to come out last year. I guess no surprise that it didn't. I'm hoping it's still in the works. I'm hoping we see it this year. It is a very fun Civil War game, a very fun sandboxy Civil War game. So why am I in Tabletop Simulator? Well, I do have this game, and I actually have, if you go back and look at those playthroughs I did, I've digitized the map that I've done here into Tabletop Simulator. And before I go any further, let me go ahead and answer the questions that are going to be asked. Can I upload this to Tabletop Simulator? And the answer is no. I am not going to upload this module to Tabletop Simulator because I don't know who owns the rights to this. I don't know if it's Ben, Wes. I don't know if it's Compass Games. I don't know if it's What's Left of Fiery Dragon. I will not post this to Tabletop Simulator unless somebody gives me written permission to do so. So you will not see this on Tabletop Simulator. But anyway, I digitized it because I am at a table space right now. I've got US Civil War from GMT on the big table. I'm finishing up the playthrough for Battles of the American Revolution on the smaller table. And when I finish that, I've got another game coming up. And I think that's probably going to be another Civil War game. It's probably going to be Prelude to Vicksburg is probably what you're going to see on the table. So I needed a third table that was a pretty good size, and I didn't have one. So I said, you know what? I'm going to create the module for CSA, and I'm going to put it in Tabletop Simulator and play it that way. So here we are. And this is the way it's set up. So you can see the Naval Warfare map is up here at the top. I'll zoom in here so we can show what we've got. Everything is where it's supposed to be at setup. So you have the CSA privateers and the USS San Jacinto up there ready to go, Jacinto, however you maul that name. So they're up there ready to go. We've got the naval counters off to the sides. We've got some Confederate counters on the left side of the screen. Here's their special events card, the omnibus markers track, and these are the generals that will come into the game through events. Down here we have some informational stuff, the artillery supremacy. You've got your veterans and your available generals that will come into the game. Some more miscellaneous counters down here. Now, like I said, I wanted a more sandboxy Civil War game. So there's optional rules in the game. One of the optional rules that you have is, can Europe interfere? Can they intervene? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you play this game, and I don't know about any future Compass versions of this game, but if you play this Fiery Dragon game and you choose to allow foreign intervention, the odds are likely it's going to happen. So I'm going to actually leave that in. We may see Europe intervene here. The turn record track is down here. And this is something I created. We'll see this when we have our first battle, a little battle area here to explain how battles work a little more. And of course, like I said, on this side, we have the omnibus tracker mark for the US. And then we have some little fiddly bits up here that I can use to track things. And then up here are the control markers that will come in as the hexes change hands. So like I said, I did do an introduction to this game, and I highly recommend you go back and watch that if you're not familiar with it. Just watch the introduction setup. Don't bother with the actual playthroughs. So I'm going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to play an entire game of this. I don't know if I'm going to finish the entire game of US Civil War from GMT. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how far we get. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump in here, and we're going to go down to the sequence of play. And I will move this little marker thing will just highlight where we are. On turn one, you do not have logistics, so we will not do logistics for either the US or the CSA, and the game tells us that's because the war has just started and neither side has really ramped up to even think about logistics yet. So the first thing we would do is go into this random events phase. Now there is a random events booklet, and I'll throw a screenshot of that up on the screen so you can see what it looks like. And basically, if you've ever played Death in the Trenches or Absolute Victory, this is like a light version of one of those games. You're going to have these random events that you're going to have every turn. And so what you'll do is you will draw, we'll come down here because this is where our random chits are here, our event chits. There are 6 in here now. So for the first 3 turns, 1861, you're only going to have 1 through 6 event chits in the bag. When we get to 1862, we'll throw in events 7 and 8. And what that will do is every turn, you will pull 2 of these chits. So if you look over here, you have your first random events phase, and then towards the end here, you're going to have your second random events phase. And that's where you'll pull a random chit and then read through the booklet, and it'll tell you what happens. So that's where we are now. We're going to pull our first random chit out of the bag, and I will show you. I will shuffle this up first. So I'm using Tabletop Simulator, the R key shuffles. We'll press that a couple times and we'll just draw a chit. And that says event 2. So what I'm going to do is I'll throw up a screenshot of 1861 chit 2, that book, or that page from that book, and it'll show you the events that are on that page, and we'll step through those right now because this is what's going to happen. So the first thing we see at the top of this booklet, there's triangles with some general names next to them, and these are generals that are now going to come into play. So we're going to go over to our available. First thing it says is USA Curtis. So Curtis will be available to us. And here's Curtis. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the Curtis Brigade Max marker, and hit the Curtis marker is under it. So I'm going to bring those to the USA available generals. It also says now Burnside is available to us. So he's over here. I'm going to grab Burnside and make him available. And then the next one is a Confederate general. So it's Pemberton. So we come and look for Pemberton. Here he is. So we'll bring him over to the Confederate available generals. So that's the first line of the page of the random event booklet. The next thing says we've got a USA event, Tennessee and Kentucky Unionists flock to enlist in the U.S. Army. So this has the little hand symbol, and this is an enlistment event. And what we do, it says roll a die and add that number to the reserves of the player mentioned here. And then it says, of course, if the word militia is in the event, brigades must be added to a general in that state. So for this one, the first one we have here, it says Tennessee and Kentucky Unionists. Well, here there's no militia, so it's just going to be an event. We're going to simulate the Unionists in Tennessee and Kentucky flocking to the United States Army. So we're just going to roll 1 die here and add that to our reserve. So let's go over here, and here's some dice here we can use. And I'm going to roll this D6, and this is how many reserves will get added to the Union reserve. So we roll a 4. So we're going to add 4 to our reserves. So we're going to go from 8 to 12. So we now have 12 available reserves. And I'll just clear this. We won't use that yet. So the next one is CSA. This is another enlistment event. CSA Major Caleb Hughes purchases 10,000 Enfield rifles from England. So the Confederates are going to get to roll and see how many they get to add to their reserve. And they get to add 5, so let's clear that. And they're going to add 5 to their reserve marker, their reserves. So they're currently sitting at 5, so they're going to have 10 now. 5 plus 5 is 10. The next event is CSA Militia. So this is a target one they were talking about. So the Army of Arkansas, add 1 brigade to 1 general in Arkansas. Well, do we have anybody in Arkansas? And yeah, we do. We have Price sitting up here. So Price is in Arkansas. And if we look at Price, he currently has 4 brigades under his command. So we're going to move this up to 5. So it's just add 1. So Price now has 5 brigades under his command. And now we're going to keep going down the list. The next event is Brazil recognizes the Confederacy. So this is where foreign intervention comes into play. So what we're going to do here is we're going to roll for French entry. So currently the entry level for France and Britain are at 0. So we're going to roll a D6, and that's going to advance this French entry marker forward. Now, if it gets to 20, that's when the powers intervene. Let's just roll a D6. Ooh, that was close. So it's only going to advance 1. So not a disaster for the Union there. So French entry is now going to sit at, and we'll just move these down here. French entry has advanced to 1. The next event on here is King Kamehameha IV declares Hawaii neutral. Roll for British entry. So another roll for foreign intervention already. Like I said, if you play this game with the intervention rules you're probably going to get intervened on. So let's see. So this is for Britain now. And they roll a 1, so that's not terrible. There are ways for these to go back down, so it's not strictly a thing where the entry levels will keep increasing. They will go back down occasionally. So the next event, we have this is a black box. This says U.S. General Robert Patterson. If this is the first chit drawn in the game, it is, flip all CSA units in Hex 1519. Patterson does his duty in an alternate universe. So here we go. We're talking about the sandbox again. So this is something happening that did not occur in the Civil War that we know. Hex 1519. I've got to find 1519. This is 1519. Jackson and Johnston are in that hex. So flip all CSA units. So when it says to flip units in a hex, it means to literally do just that. The rule book recommends you flip it upside down. What that means is the unit has moved and cannot conduct a movement this turn. I'm going to use these yellow overlays. So both of those generals and their brigades, what that's saying is they will not be able to move or do any actions this turn. So that was the result of that random event. The next random event, slaves escape. The South hasn't yet realized you can't take slaves anywhere near Union lines. CSA must reveal the contents of 3 stacks, USA's choice, adjacent to U.S. stacks. So this is an instance where we have Beauregard sitting next to McDowell. Now this is for a 2-player game. I'm doing this solo. And if you were playing this 2-player, you would not have access to your opponent's omnibus track over here. So if you were the Confederates, you would have no idea how many brigades McDowell had assigned to him. What this event is saying is you now get to look at that because you have information coming back into your lines that reveals how many brigades that McDowell actually has. Since this is a solo game, I'm not going to worry about that event. We'll continue right along. The next event is CSA, and this is an Indian event that says deploy WATIE, WATI. I don't know how you pronounce that. Deploy on any CSA-controlled hex in Texas or Indian territory. So there are Indian units in the game. And they are referring to this one. So it's saying to deploy this in Texas somewhere. I'm just going to drop it here for now. Let's zoom into Texas. And I'll double check that. It does say, Texas or Indian territory. So I could put it down in Texas. These red lines are state border markers. So I could put it in Texas, anywhere in here, or I could put it up into Indian territory. So I'm going to put this in Indian territory. We're going to put it into this. Now, these are minor Indian cities. That's the way these are treated. So I'm just going to throw it into here and go to the next event. So the next event is the Orphan Brigade. And that means, so these are veterans, I believe. So let me go down here and look at so this is Confederate, so it would be up top. Yeah, so see this Orphan Brigade, this is a veteran unit. So these are special units. They're different than generals and regular brigades. Again, like I said, if you have any questions, go back and look at the introduction setup that I did earlier for this game. So this veteran unit will now become available to the Confederates. So this will go into available veterans. So let's put him down here. And I'm going to put him on top of Rhodes, which is already in there as part of setup. And then it says also the USA 2nd Brigade, U.S. Regular Army veteran will get to be made available. And that's up here. And, well, I believe it's up here. No, it doesn't look like it is up there. So where is it? Did I put it down here? Well, it's already in there. So I'm not sure why it's already in there. But it's saying to make this available. So it already is in there. It is available. All right, so reading further down, we have 2 more special events, USA Sharpshooters and CSA Rebel Yell. This is referring to these special events that the Confederates and the Union can use during the game. So basically, if you have a coin sitting on one of these events, you discard the coin and play the event. In this case, they start with Rebel Yell, this part of setup. And this tells you that the CSA can designate 1 stack outside of a Grand Army, and all of its units may move and fight together as if they were a Grand Army. So this event is telling me to put one of these tokens on the Rebel Yell. So they're going to have 2. So they'll get to play this twice if they want to. And then for the Union, USA Sharpshooters, they have nothing right now, but they're going to get the Sharpshooters. Crack shots target enemy generals prior to a leader death die roll. So when you have a battle, every time you have a battle, you have to roll for leader death. So this is saying when you do that, you can play this coin to add a +1 for one CSA general in the stack chosen at random. So it increases your chances of taking out a general there after a battle. All right, continuing to move right along. We have, so the next thing is an inflation event. So inflation is how you're going to win or lose this game. So the first one is a plus USA. That means it is an increase in inflation for the US. And it says the government raises tariffs. So you've got your inflation. Currently it's sitting at 0 for the Union. We're going to roll a D6 is what the event is telling us to do. And this is how much inflation will increase. 1. We're rolling a lot of 1s, which is kind of weird. So inflation is going to go up to 1 for the Union. And then we've got a Confederate inflation. So this is a minus to CSA. Well, the CSA's inflation is already sitting at 0. So we can't go any lower than that. So there's no point in rolling a D6. So this is the beauty of this game, the random event. So this is chit number 2. We're done going through all the random events for chit number 2. And as you can tell, so there's 6 of these chits. They can come out in any order in this game. So it adds to replayability. So that was this part right here. That was determine what random events occur. So the next thing we would do is we would go into elections. And you can see this is for fall turns only, 1862, 63, and 64. So you do have congressional and presidential elections in this game. We'll see those if we get far enough along in the game. But right now we have none to worry about. Now we go into the Kentucky phase. And again, I like this because this is getting into the sandboxiness of the game here. So it says Kentucky, if Kentucky is neutral, and Kentucky is up here, it is neutral. So there is a 4th there, and there's the green indicates these are currently neutral cities. So the cool thing about this game, this event, or not this event, but what the sequence of play is telling us here, this if Kentucky is neutral, 14.2, we're going to roll for its neutrality status. So what that's going to mean is we are going to roll a D6, and based upon what is rolled, Kentucky will either join the CSA, join the USA, or stay neutral. So if we roll a 1, it's going to go for the Confederates and join the Confederacy. If we roll a 5 or a 6, it's going to join the United States. If it's anything else, 2, 3, or 4, it'll stay neutral. So let's roll a D6 again and see what we get. We roll a 2. So a 2 says Kentucky stays neutral. So no need to change the neutrality. And then the next thing would be a bad winter. So this is for winter turns only. We don't have a winter turn in 1861. We do, but it's actually called 1862, I think. So yeah, so we're actually going to 1862 for winter. Now we're going to go into the naval phase. And this is where we're going to play with inflation again. So what this is, I'm going to go up to the top of the map. And I have this is from Board Game Geek, and I mentioned this in the previous playthrough I did. This is a solo naval allocation chart for placing these units. Now, if you're playing a 2-player game, the Confederates would secretly place where they want their privateers to go, and then the Union player would secretly place where he thought the Confederate player was going to send those privateers. What this does, though, is first we're going to place the Confederates, and I'm going to just put them in the Central Atlantic. So what will happen now, the Union will place where they want their ship to go. If it goes anywhere else, and it's not in the same area as the Confederate privateer, then inflation will increase in the USA by +3. If this ends up in the same area as the Confederate privateer, then a battle will ensue between the ships, and the inflation will not increase. So using this solitaire allocation map, I'm going to roll 2 D6s, and that'll tell us where the Union wants to place that ship. And then you can see there it was weighted. So I'm just going to roll 2 D6. And we roll, it says it's a 4. So we go back up and look at our chart. 4 is Central Atlantic. Well, that's bad news for the Confederates. So that's going to come in here as well. So now we're going to have a battle. All right, and the way the battle is going to work, so we have the Confederates don't get to shoot, only the Union shoots. So the Union's going to roll a D6. And if that roll is I think it's greater than this number. Let me check that real quick. No, it's equal to or greater than. So if it's equal to or greater than a 2, then they sink the ship. So they're looking for basically 2 or greater here. So let's roll. And we'll put this back down to 1 and we'll just roll. And they roll a 1. It's the absolute worst they could roll. So they don't sink the ship. That's bad news for them. And actually it says if the ship was sunk, then the US would have reduced their inflation in this case. But since they didn't sink it, they don't get to do that. So that's going to conclude naval warfare phase in the sequence of play. So you can see here that it says USA performs any landings in this phase. Well, we don't have this. It's not a possibility yet. So there are landing chits, and you can see those up here. These will come into play through random events, and they'll make these available to the Union. So right now, the Union is not able to conduct any landings. So that's going to take us into the heart of the game, which is the pulse phase. And the way this works is the game turn track marker, and you can see this is over here where it says USA. This is who has the initiative, so the US will go first in the first 3 turns, then the Confederates will start going, and then it kind of flips. So it starts, the US will go first in moving one of their units, and then after they conduct their movement and or battle, then the Confederate player will then move one of his units. So it's just a back and forth until both players pass. So before we do that though, there is a rule. There's a special rule to this game. The early turn special rules, and this is on page 29 if you have the rule book. So special early turn rules. On the first pulse of the first turn, the US must attack Confederate forces in hex 1520. So this is the Battle of Manassas. This is hex 1520. So there's Beauregard. So we have to conduct this attack. So we're going to start with that. So if you look at your general markers, McDowell is a 4-4-3. So his attack value is a 4, his defense value is a 4, and his initiative is a 3. The game is telling us that McDowell must conduct an attack, but in order to do that, he actually has to move. So a general cannot move unless he passes an initiative check. In this case, McDowell is going to have to roll a 3 or less to move. So first things first, can he even attack? Let's go roll for his initiative. So he's looking for a 3 or less. And let's clear this and roll. He rolls a 2, so he does pass his initiative and he does in fact move. So what I'm going to do, let's go back down here. I'm going to use this. This is a battle marker to show where the battle is going to take place. And it's going to take place. So McDowell actually moves into this hex with Beauregard. So the battle will actually occur here. And I'm going to grab, McDowell's the attacker, so the fort would not come with him. So I'm just going to grab both of these units. And we're going to come down here to the battle map that I created so I can walk you through a battle. So let's see, McDowell is the attacker and Beauregard will be the defender. The first thing we want to do is we want to look at how many brigades does McDowell have. So you go find his brigade max marker, 7. So currently McDowell has 7. So I'm going to put that into our Union counter here. So he's got 7. Beauregard. Beauregard, where is Beauregard? He has 6. So Beauregard has 6 to McDowell's 7. We'll put a 6 in there for him. So I'm just going to track the brigades here. So the way combat works, each brigade has an attack strength of 1, a defense strength of 1, and a fortitude of 3, with fortitude being the number of hits that a unit can take, basically. So what we do is, for battle to occur, McDowell's the attacker. So McDowell has 7 brigades. So 7 times 1, so this is the attack. So you have 7 brigades. And so their attack strength would be 7 in this case. So it's 7 times 1. You get to add to that 1 McDowell's attack rating. So in his case, it's a 4. So it's 11. So what I'm going to do is go down here and put an 11 in for the attacker. Now, if you had veterans in this or other units or other things in play, it would change this. But since it's just McDowell and his brigades, that's going to be an 11. And again, that comes from 7 plus McDowell's own attack strength of 4. And then we look at the defender, Beauregard. He's not in a fort. He's out in the open. All he has is his brigade. So again, it's 6 times the second number. In this case, it's a 1 again. It'll always be 113 for the brigades. So it's 6 times 1, 6, plus Beauregard's on defensive strength, and it's the second number on Beauregard's counter here. It's a 5. So again, it's going to be 11 for the defender. So this is the defender counter. So we're going to put 11 in for that. And so we have 11 going against 11. Now, the way the game would work, you're playing 2-player. Each player would secretly determine the number of dice they want to throw. And this is like a blackjack mechanic. You want to roll as high as you can without going over. And you can roll as many dice as you want to. So if I wanted to roll 20 dice here, I could roll 20 dice, which would be stupid because you'd probably go over. Well, you would go over. What you can do here, though, is you can roll 1d6, or you can roll 2d6. Now, if you roll a 12, you would go over. And if you go over, you miss completely. You get no hits at all. If you could roll 3, so maybe you want to roll 3 and try to roll high. So again, you're trying to roll as high as you can without going over. So we'll start with McDowell. How many dice does he want to roll? And his number he's trying to stay at or under is just what we added up, his offensive firepower, which in this case is an 11. I'm going to say he was going to roll 2 dice. So he's going to roll, I'm just mark this to 2. He wants to roll 2 dice. So he's thinking he can roll high with 2 dice, and he doesn't want to roll a 12 because that means he would go over. Beauregard is going to do the same thing. He's got 11 as well, so he's thinking, maybe I'll roll 2 dice, and I really don't want to go over. I'd like to do some damage here. So now that we've calculated the number of dice that each side wants to roll, we roll those dice and see what the result is. So we roll for McDowell first. He rolled a 10. That's pretty good. So let's put his 10 in. Not 100. That should be a 10. And so now we're going to roll for Beauregard and see what he gets. So he rolls. Well, he rolled a 4. That's not so good. So we'll put a 4 in here. So in this case, McDowell is the winner because he did roll higher. So the first thing we do, though, we have to resolve the hits. In this case, McDowell rolled a 10. So for every 3 hits, these are 10 hits, and Beauregard rolled 4. For every 3 hits, you lose a brigade. So in this case, it's 3 times 3 is 9. So he lost 3. Anything over that doesn't equal a 3 is just lost. So McDowell's going to lose 3 brigades. So let's go up here and get rid of those 3 brigades. So he goes from 7 down to 4 from the battle. And then, and I'm doing this wrong. It's not McDowell losing the brigades. McDowell inflicted 3 brigade losses onto Beauregard. So it's Beauregard who's going to lose the 3, not McDowell. So that's going to go from 6 to 3. So again, I did it backwards. So McDowell inflicted 10 hits. 3 hits reduces your brigades by 1. So 3 times 3 is 9. Beauregard has to lose 3 brigades, and we just did that. Now Beauregard scored 4 hits. So we discard the extra 1, so he only got 1 hit on McDowell. So McDowell would just lose 1, so he'd go down to 6. So that's how you would do your brigade losses. Next thing we have to do now is retreat. So any side that wins the battle, that gets more hits, wins, and the side that loses must retreat. So Beauregard, let's go ahead and put him back up here. So here's our battle hex. Beauregard's going to have to retreat, and he's going to have to retreat towards friendly lines. So he could go into here, 14, 19, or even back here with Stuart. I'm going to move him back into this brown terrain. We haven't talked about terrain, but this is rough terrain, and you have better defense value in rough terrain. So he's just going to move back to here. Let's go ahead and move our battle marker off to the side. And then McDowell is just going to advance into that vacated hex. But we're not done yet. We have one more thing to do, and that's leader death checks. And this is for both sides, and this happens every battle. So like I said, you want a sandbox Civil War game, this is it. So once we've done the retreats, you have to do the retreats first. Then we're going to check for leader death. And it's different for the USA and the CSA. Once for a US general, you're going to roll 2d6s, and on a 12 boxcars, the general will die. For the Confederate general, if you roll snake eyes or boxcars, the general will die. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to clear these numbers. We don't need these anymore. And we're going to roll 2. Let's start with the Union. So we're going to see if the Union general dies. And again, he'll only die on double 6s. So he survives, and now we're going to roll for Beauregard, and snake eyes or double 6s will kill Beauregard. Nope, so he's fine. So both generals survive. and they will both earn a moved marker. So again, I'm using the yellows. The rules say just to flip these upside down. I'm going to put these little yellow tokens on there to show that they have in fact moved. So that is that. Okay, so all that was just McDowell moving. So we started, the USA had the initiative and McDowell moved. So now it goes over to the Confederates and they get to move a unit. So what do they want to do? Well, I want to go out west. I know Price is sitting over here. And we have this Indian unit also sitting here we can move in. But I think I'm going to elect Price or choose Price. And I think I'm going to have him move into Springfield. So if you're curious as to how this works, Missouri is neutral. And you can go in there and take it. It's not going to do anything special just by going in and taking a city in Missouri. What will happen though is if you can take all 4 of these cities, you're going to reduce the inflation on your side by 12. This is huge, and timing is important here with this. So you really wouldn't want to grab all of Missouri until your inflation was up a lot, 12 or more ideally, so you could go back down. In this case though, the Confederates to grab the entire of Missouri, that's going to be very hard to do. Not going to say it's impossible, but it's going to be hard to do. So again, I'm going to roll for initiative for Price, and we're going to see if he even gets to move on Springfield. So Price's initiative is a 4, so we're looking for a 4 or less to see if he can even move. So let's roll a d6. So he cannot move. Unfortunate, because Springfield is sitting there. So he has moved. Now we go back to the Union. So what does the Union want to do? And I think they're going to want to try to come down here and grab some of these cities in Missouri. So we're going to start with Lyon here. And Lyon's a pretty strong general. He's 875. And remember that in this game, this is not like GMT's U.S. Civil War, where Lyon goes away after one turn. Lyon is in the game. He's subject to death just like every other general. He may stay in the game the entire time, and I hope he does because he's an 875. Lyon is going to move into Missouri here. Now, note the blue hexes here. So the blue hexes, these are called river hexes, even though they comprise more than just a river. They're actually areas. So they're considered river hexes, though. And when a Union general starts in a river hex, they do not need to roll for initiative. They can just move. So Lyon is just going to move. You can move, I should have mentioned this before, units can move, if you're not starting in an enemy zone of control, you can move up to 3 hexes. If you start in an enemy zone of control, you can only move up to 2 hexes. So in this case, I want to move Lyon. Now, I don't have to stop in St. Louis here to take control. I can move through it. And the way that control works here is it's the last unit to move through a hex controls it. So I'm going to take Lyon and move him into, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I'm actually going to move him towards Springfield. And I'm doing that because I want to beat the Confederates to Springfield if I can. So we're going to take Lyon, and again, doesn't roll for initiative because it's a river hex he's starting in. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. So that will flip control of St. Louis here. Oops, I don't want the whole bag of markers. I just want one. So let's grab one marker. So that's going to flip to Union control. And that's going to be it for, let's just clone this. Oops, I didn't clone it. Well, let's just grab it. So that's going to be it for Lyon there. And so ideally what you'd want to do is, since he moved over, down, and over, you really should put a control marker in here to show that the Union controls that hex. And that's for supply. And the way supply works is your unit has to be able to trace supply back to 2 sources. And in this case, it's easy enough to do. He can trace supply back up to a lot of these areas, so it's no big deal. But you'd want to know where they have control. So if the Confederates had control here, he would not be able to trace through that hex. All right, so that was Lyon's movement. Now we go back to the Confederate side. They get to move. Let's take a look up here. We could have Magruder attack Butler. Butler's in a fort. I don't think I want to do that yet. We have Albert down here in Nashville. So I'm going to move Johnston up to this fort. So he's in a river hex, but he doesn't benefit from that being Confederate. He has to roll for initiative. So he's got to roll a 4 or less. So let's see. So see, he didn't get his initiative, so he does not get to move. Now we go back to the Union. We have Fremont sitting up here, and I'm going to move Fremont towards St. Joseph back here. So again, he's in a river hex, doesn't have to roll for initiative. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So Fremont is there, and we will put a move marker on Fremont. Now we go back to the Confederates. So I have this Indian unit sitting here, and you're thinking, well, just run into Springfield. Well, I can't. So these dark brown hexes are impassable terrain. So I can't, I'd have to go around this terrain. Notice there's no hex numbers in there. They're out of play. So I can't do that. So I'm going to leave the Indian unit right there. Polk is sitting down here. Now I talk about this in the introduction. You see there's a V under Memphis. There are 4 of these V markers on the map. If the Union controls those 4 V marked hexes, then they split the Confederacy, and that's huge for the Union to do so. But a little too early to worry about that now. So we have Bragg sitting down here. Bragg can actually move 1, 2, 3. He could get to this fort. Now let's try to move Bragg. So let's see if we can move Bragg. I'm still getting used to the controls of Tabletop Simulator. It's been a while. So he rolls for his initiative. Well, he gets a 5, so he's not moving. These Confederate generals just aren't moving. So he tried to move. We go back to the Union. We got Rosecrans up here. I think I'm going to move him down. So he is not in a river, so he's got to roll a 3 or less. Let's try to roll for initiative with Rosecrans, looking for 3 or less. And he's not moving. Okay, back to the Confederates. I do have Polk down here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. He couldn't get up there. I don't think I'm going to move Polk. I could move the Indian unit up, so maybe we want to do that. An Indian unit, now these numbers are different for veterans and cavalry. The 224, so normally that would be an initiative number for a general, but since this is more like a veteran unit, this is a fortitude number. So again, this is how many hits this unit can take. So this unit will not have to roll for initiative. It's just going to move. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3. So he's moving up towards Lawrence there. And now we're going to go back to the Union. And the Union is going to pass. So that's 1 pass. Back to the Confederates. Do they want to move Polk? I don't think so. I think they're going to pass as well. So that's 2 passes in a row. That's going to take us out of the pulse phase. Bring this down to the reinforcements phase. All units on the map which were flipped, now unflipped and returned to the printed side up. So what that's going to mean is basically all these yellow tokens come off. And I'll just delete the rest of these. So we're just resetting the board, showing that these units will be able to move or attempt to move next time. So I believe that's all of those. So we flipped all of the units, and now we receive reinforcements. So that says to see rule 16.1. So the way this is going to work, we're going to look at our inflation. That's going to determine the number of reinforcements we get. So right now, inflation for the Confederacy is at 13. So they're going to get 13 brigades. That's going to be their replacements, and they'll go into their reserve. So 13 plus 10, they already have 10. 13 plus 10 will take them to 23. So that's 23 on the omnibus marker. The Union has 1 inflation. So instead of 17, they're only going to get 16 because of inflation. So they will go from 12 plus 16, that's going to be 28. So that's that is their reinforcements they're going to get. And then it says, and possibly paroles. There's, so 16.2 is paroles. There's a random event that will set up an exchange cartel. So we don't have this yet, but basically we would roll a D6 and that would add more brigades to the reinforcements. So now that's over. We're going into the second random events phase. So we're going to pull yet another chit from the bag. And that's 4. So we get the random events booklet, and it looks like there's not a whole lot of events here, but we'll go through them. So the first thing we have, each side will get a general that becomes available. In the case of the US, it's Pope. We find Pope, he's up here, and he now becomes available. And the Confederates get Van Dorn, so we got to find Van Dorn, he's up here. So he now becomes available. And reading down, the next event is Seward prevails. If this is the very first chit drawn in the game, it's not. It says to roll twice for British entry. Now this chit, I've had this come up before in it being the first chit drawn in the game, and you roll 2 d6s. So it's possible to have the British entry level go up to 12, and I've had it happen. This is not the first chit drawn, so we skip it. So we're going to go down now to the next event. Threatened executions. The USA uses strong arm tactics against rebel privateers on the high seas. Roll for British entry. So the British don't like they like the freedom of the seas. So what this is rolling for British entry increasing again because of the Union actions. So we're going to move the, wow, 6. See, so that's, you can see where you can get some bad rolls and have Europe intervene. So this is going to go from 1 to 7. So we're getting closer to the 20 mark there for the Britain intervening. Okay, continue reading. So the next event is Lincoln urges seizures of Haitian land to colonize the ex-slaves. Roll for French entry. So we got to roll for France entering the war now. We will clear this and roll again. 4. So the French entry is now going up by 4. So they go from 1. They're already at 1. So plus 4 is going to take them to 5. And our next event is Missouri. So this has a little hollow or a little white spade marker next to it. This is a raid event. And so this, what's got to happen here? It's the Union's going to have to remove a brigade from the state mentioned, in this case, Missouri. So let's go to Missouri. So we have Fremont and Lyon are both in Missouri. So one of them's got to give up a brigade because of this Confederate raid. So Fremont is at 2 and Lyon is at 1. So let's take it from Fremont. So he lost a brigade. And now we've got another random event. So this is a deployment event. It's got the little star, the circle with the star in it. So the CSA gets the 1st Tennessee Volunteer Infantry. And I believe those are up here. This is it. So we want to take this, and this is going to go down to our available veterans. So now they have 3 sitting in there. And then the U.S. gets the Irish brigades. And where are my Union? I don't see my Union vets. This is really weird. I don't know where they are. I'm going to have to fix this. Oh, no, here they are up here. They're right in front of me. So here's the Irish brigade. So that becomes available. I don't know why I couldn't see those. So now they have 3. And finally, we have some more random events added. And I need to remember these are up here. I'm kind of forgetting them. Starting with the Confederates, they get Yankee papers. And that's here. Union deployments revealed by Inquisitive Press. So this is reveal the contents of any adjacent stack. So I may turn that into something different. Maybe I'll take a brigade from an adjacent stack or something since I'm doing this solitaire. And the Union gets 2. They get U.S. Balloon Corps. Place at any time. The CSA must reveal another sort of revealing contents of the stack. Again, I may make that just something that's more solo friendly. They also get a military telegraph service. So that's over here. If any U.S. stack fails its initiative roll, play this chit and it immediately re-roll. So it's basically a free re-roll for initiative. And that is it for special, or for random events, I should say. That's it for the second random events phase. Then it tells us to put all the chits back into the cup. And well, that's only if you're only at the end of the fall turn. So we're not going to put all the chits back into the cup because we still have 2 more turns to go through. So there's 4 more chits in there. So we would just go back up to the logistics phase and start turn number 2. But I'm going to end it here. I just wanted to do a one turn of CSA America's Civil War. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing the reprint of this game. I think there's some real changes I probably would like to see, but mainly I would love to see just updated components, maybe a bigger map, different looking counters. I think there's potential here for this game. If you like the sandboxy stuff, if you like Death in the Trenches, Absolute Victory, and really if you play the solitaire games from Ben and West, they also introduce random events that are really neat. I like the sandbox feel for some of these games. That being said, though, there are times when I do like the historical playthroughs, which is why I'm doing the U.S. Civil War from GMT right now. So again, speaking of that, I've got the GMT U.S. Civil War is underway. I'm about to finish up Great Battles of the American Revolution. I've got 2 more turns. And then I think, like I said, I think you're going to see Prelude to Vicksburg. It's the first game I've owned in that series, and I'm hoping to get it to the table. And then I have this one I just started in Tabletop Simulator. I don't know how long I'll play this one. I just want you to get a feel for how it plays if you have any interest in a reprint of this, and we will keep going. So I'm pretty sure I did everything right in this turn. If I didn't, let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to correct it if I can. If not, we won't worry about it. We'll just keep going. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That really helps us out here. There is a Patreon page. If you'd like to become a patron of My Own Worst Enemy, please check that out. That really helps. As always, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time.